Every time when Shashank is on the show, and if he's joining us in the morning show, we start with this famous quote. The butter from the bread is missing, but when the stock is at 10,000, the butter is toasted, and I think the bread is toasted and toasted from buttered from both the sides. 10,000 rupees stock. Now where is the bread? Where is the butter? Everything is on the table along with the lassi.
It's the cake, I think.
It is, with the cherry called Invicto.
So official guidance from Maruti that the bread is, forget about the bread, now it's the cake with the cherry which is back on the table. Can I make that an official guidance from Maruti? Okay. 10,000 rupees for the stock markets are excited about what's happening in the auto space. Let's start with first your understanding of the market and then we'll get into specifics of your new car launch.
Well, the quarter which just went by, April, May, June, was the highest ever quarter one in the history of Indian auto industry. We saw the highest ever April, highest ever May, highest ever June. Overall, the Q1 numbers were about 9.5% higher than last year. So that's good. And if you look at the January-June period, for the first time, H1 numbers crossed 2 million mark. That's pretty good going, I think, and the demand parameters look quite stable. However, going forward, I think in Q2, you will see lower growth numbers, although in absolute volume term, you could see very good numbers. So overall, on the demand side, I think it's holding up well. And with the new introductions that we have had, we have seen growth faster than the industry. And as a result, our market share has gone up in this quarter.
Shashank, in some sense, you've been a late entrant into the seven-seater MPV/SUV segment, right? Tell me, what's the feeling about Invicto? Do you think this is the category within urban SUVs where you could actually cash in from the other players and try and get a bigger size of the market share?
Listen, the SUV sector has been growing. In fact, 5 years back, it was just about 22%, now about 47% in this quarter. So very good growth. Maruti Suzuki's market share in Q1 of last year was only 8.5% in SUVs. Now that has grown to, we are now close number two from the position of number 4 last year. We have about 22% share in the SUV segment. That's good because it helps our overall market share, and we have introduced the Vitara, the Chimney, the Fronx, and of course we had the Brezza. So these are the 4 SUVs. And in the MPV segment, we had the XL6 and the Ertiga. We had about 50% share, by the way, last year in MPV segment. But now we have gone into a new price segment. And I think that's the landmark or milestone, you can say, in our journey. Because, earlier Maruti Suzuki was known to have been the market leader in the less than 10 lakh rupee category vehicles, which we still are. We have 60% share there. But 10 to 20 also, we became market leader last year. It's a fact which is not known to many people. We are the market leader in up to 20 lakh category. So as a natural progression, of course, we thought we should get into the 20 lakh segment category. It's about 7-8% of the market at the moment. So volumes may not be high, but it will have a very positive effect on the premium image that, the other brands within our umbrella brand that it will have a rub off on.
That's a very interesting point that you made, Shashank. So going forward as well, do you think this is going to be a conscious strategy now to try and position Maruti more within the premium SUV, MPV segment? And can we see more launches even after Invicto in this particular category?
Yeah, I think that's a very common question, and there is still a large portion of our country which has, those traditional criteria of buying, which is value, price, fuel efficiency, low spare parts cost, low after maintenance, cost, and so on. That's something where we are anyway very strong at, and we will continue to dominate. We call that the Bharat, and then there is this new India, which is more aspirational, going away from functionality to more design, technology, features, which is growing, as I just mentioned. And therefore, we also have to participate in this segment. And that's the reason why we created the Nexa channel. And going forward, we are bringing in products which are very high on technology, features, and accordingly, the corresponding prices also are high. So yes, it's a conscious strategy to address both the Bharat and the New India.
So, Shashank, our understanding of the market is following that as you go up the value chain, your margins they tend to increase higher, and that's been demonstrated by your capability. If I look at Grand Vitara and how the margins were higher than Alto. So, as you move up the value chain, in 12 to 24 months from now, how much of your new business will come from traditional cars and how much will come from the new car launches or the higher margin products? How should I read into your smile? You're smiling on my question. You're smiling a lot.
So
I mean, looks like we're in for bumper quarter for Maruti again.
no. I'm just trying. I'm saying I am thinking how to reply because it's probably not always correct that a higher price vehicle gives you a higher margin. It actually depends on the competition in that segment. For example, in the SUV, these are a slightly higher price like mid SUV, but the competition is intense. We have about 45, 46 brands in that segment. Whereas in some other categories, the number of brands are much lower. So it depends on the competition, the relative margins. But you are right, on a thumb rule basis, a higher price vehicle should give a larger margin. However, when you look at the projection, as you are asking, where with Maruti Suzuki be, currently we have about 53% of our overall sales coming from hatches, the small cars. Going forward, I think by the end of the year, it should fall to somewhere between 45 to 48%. In other words, the larger cars should gain in our portfolio, maybe from the existing 47% to maybe 55%.
Srivastava, what's the outlook when it comes to your annual production capacity? What does it currently stand at, and where are you looking to, or how much are you looking to grow it by the end of the year over the next few years?
Yeah, so we have actually announced earlier that our current capacity is somewhere between 21 to 22 lakhs, combining Gujarat, Manesar, and Gurgaon. And we'll be adding a 2.5 lakh capacity with our first plant coming up in Kharkhoda in 2025-26. And going forward, of course, Kharkhoda plant by 2030 should have give us an additional capacity of 10 lakh. That means the capacity will go up to 31, 32 lakh. But as we had projected earlier, by 2030, the demand for Maruti Suzuki products, including exports and OEM supplies, should be about 40 lakh. That means that we have to add one more plant, and that's what, in the last board meeting, the board had directed the management to find a new place, a new factory, where we can add another 10 lakh. So by 2030-31, we are looking at that 40 lakh capacity from the current 21, 22 lakhs.
Now, everybody wants to move in the SUV market. You mentioned 40. Well, everybody is trying to get a piece of that space. It is pretty much like 10, 12 years ago, what happened in the small car market. Everybody wanted to have a larger share because that was the go-to space, because the cycle wala was buying two-wheeler and the two-wheeler wala was buying small car. Now the difference is that the first car you're buying is actually SUV. Nobody's going up the value chain. But the spirit of my question is that if there is so much of intense competition in the SUV market, could there be a market share fight? Could there be disruptive pricing? Could there be competition where everybody will go for gain, not margins and profitability? Do you see a war happening in the SUV car market in India, led by Maruti?
So it's an interesting question, and we have been, internally debating upon it. We have about 45, 46 brands in the SUV space. Fortunately, the market has been growing very fast. And as a result, and also because in the last 2 years, we have had supply issues, first related to the COVID shutdown, and then the semiconductor crisis, which still persists to some extent. So as a result, the pressure of high production or high supply chasing a smaller demand was not there. And hence, we could see a large number of players in the SUV segment without discounts. In fact, there was waiting for most of the models. Still is for some of the models. So I think going forward, when the supply increases, yes, as is the case always, if you have supply larger than demand, then is the time when stocks start piling up in both in the factory and in the dealer network. And that's the time when, companies adopt different strategies. Some adopt a higher market share chasing strategy. That means to have a larger sales promotion expenses. Others would probably, compromise on market share and look at lower sales promotions. So that depends then on the company, but theoretically, and also what we have seen in the past, if the supply exceeds the demand, you would see discounts go up.
Srivastava, I have to ask that the Invicto means undefeated in Latin. You guys come up with some very innovative names. So what are some of the other interesting names that you're planning for the new launches?
Very, very, very interesting. So we are brushing up our Latin, our Spanish, and our Greek language, because those are the languages which provide us all those exotic names like the Invicto, which comes from the Latin word invictus, which means, as you said, undefeated.
So, Shashank, I have to ask you this. Are you a bike lover at all?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Actually, now I don't have that. I don't drive it now, but yes, during my college times, yes, that was actually the favorite above the cars also.
So if you had to ride one, which one would it be? The Hero Harley latest bike? Would it still be RE? Or would it be the newest offering from Bajaj?
Hero Harley probably, but I would, I have to examine that and see and compare which one would be more exciting.
I'm sending this interview to Aisha that you're endorsing Hero Harley.
And to Mr. Munjal as well. He's very happy.
I like to see the specs, and I like to see how my wife looks at it, and that's how.
A test ride soon.
Wife and bikes, okay, that's a new one. Shashank, so nice to have you.
Television, I can't say otherwise.
Well, Shashank, so nice to have you. Thank you for joining us. It's been always great to have you. But in general, if I have to summarize today's interaction, can I say that the second half, as of today, if you have to look at it in terms of the macro picture, you are reasonably confident. All this talk of a rural slowdown, you think that one can dismiss easily, at least from your perspective?
Two red flags: the El Nino effect on the monsoon and the high interest rates. Beyond that, I think current demand parameters, as I said, are holding up well. So you can see large volumes, but not necessarily high growth, because last year the base effect has now come in. And Q2, in fact, was the largest ever in the history of Indian automobile industry last year. So yes, I hope the demand continues, but the growth numbers from over last year might be a little muted from now.
That's the base effect. But on the other side, the base effect could kick in, but the base effect would also be helpful because commodity prices have come down. So the base in terms of margin, that has also been made. Can I assume that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I was talking only purely from a market perspective. From a financial perspective, of course, what you said is right.
So what is a better scenario? Decently moderating base in terms of top line, but a strong uptick in margin. What is a better scenario for the company?
Listen, I always find that whenever I ask the question internally, the answer given to me is that both are important. I have to pursue volumes and market share, and at the same time, make sure that the profitability remains high.
So I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if I'm summarizing today's interaction by saying the headline from Maruti and from Shashank is that the second half of this year for the auto sector and for Maruti per se would be a reasonable one.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assessment.
Okay, so now it is bread, butter, lassi and cake. Everything is back on the table for you.
With the cherry on top.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate your time.
Thank you.